Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's presentation. My name is Sarah Gurecki, and I'm the Chief Publishing Officer at the Colorado Mountain Club. This evening, we have Gil Folsom. Gil is the author of the completely updated 5th edition of Colorado Campgrounds, The 100 Best and All the Rest. And this book is a very comprehensive guidebook to over 400 public campgrounds across Colorado. And that includes Forest Service, BLM, Park Service, state parks, state wildlife areas, and even some county and town parks. So all public campgrounds across Colorado. And Gil is going to tell us a little bit about how he researched and wrote the book. He personally visited every single campground in this book, which is mind-boggling and quite an achievement. He's also going to talk about the different types of campgrounds in Colorado, including how he chose the top 100 campgrounds for the book. And then he's going to show us a few of his favorites. So Colorado Campgrounds will be for 25% off tonight during the presentation and for the rest of the evening on our website, which is cmc.org/books, and using the code camping25 for the 25% off. And I'll put that in the chat after we get started with the talk. So a few Zoom reminders. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with using Zoom by now, but just a few friendly reminders. So please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off during the presentation. That really helps with bandwidth, internet bandwidth during the talk. And just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. Please do ask all of your questions in the chat box. We're going to do a Q&A at the end, so we'll have plenty of time for all of your questions. And so that's it for Zoom reminders. Now to introduce tonight's speaker. So Gil Folsom is a longtime Colorado resident, and he's been an avid camper since he was in the Boy Scouts. He has camped all over the world from Alaska to New Zealand, and he has probably visited more public campgrounds in Colorado than anyone else. All right, so thanks for joining us, everyone, and over to you, Gil.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll bring you some good information on Colorado public campgrounds. So let's get going. As far as my background goes, I was born in California, in Southern California, I should state. I started to camp in the Boy Scouts. I enjoyed it quite a bit, especially since my parents did no camping whatsoever. Both grew up on farms but had absolutely no interest in the outdoors. So at any rate, my family moved here, Colorado, when I was 16. I started to fall in love with the Colorado Mountains while I was attending Western State in Gunnison. I was there for several years and really enjoyed the mountain scenery and the mountain experiences. So it started my interest in trying to camp in Colorado. I didn't have a chance to really do that until 2 or 3 years after college. And at that point, my girlfriend and I decided to go out and explore a new campground. She had as little camping experience as I did, which was none, basically, other than the Boy Scouts. So we made a lot of mistakes and had our small tent and bigger tents and so on and so on. But I've always been a super curious guy, and I'm sort of the jack of all trades, the master of none, and I have a lot of different hobbies and interests, so on. So I always wanted to see what was around the next corner. So I started collecting data and information, and I shared this information with friends that I had. Soon they started asking me where to camp, and so that was sort of the inspiration for the idea of the campgrounds. When I first did the research for this, it was the summer of 1998, actually, a long time ago. I intended to include commercial campgrounds and public campgrounds all together. I'd never really had much experience with commercial campgrounds. I started visiting some of them, but I quickly got sort of a dislike for most of those campgrounds. They typically have very small campsites, usually very little separation between sites. Often they're next to busy highways. They have the ambience of a Walmart parking lot in many cases. it just didn't really feel like it was camping. I felt like it was more about maximizing profit for the owners than maximizing enjoyment for the campers. So I just decided, no, I don't want anything to do with the commercial campgrounds. It's all going to be public campgrounds, and there's only so much room in the book anyways. So we left out those. So out I went, and I spent the entire summer of 1998 going up and down every back road in the state. I'd be on the road by 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd go until the end of the day, until I couldn't see anymore, until it was dark. I'd try to visit each campground, spend a half an hour to an hour there. I would grill the hosts incessantly, like, what's so great about your campground? Why is it better than the one down the road? What do people like about your campground? Tell me the most popular site in the campground, second most popular, third most popular, and so on. So I'd grill them to death, and I'd ask them their opinions on what their favorite campgrounds were. I'd do the same with Forest Service. So I'd gather up all this information, and I'd drive through the campground, and I'd think, okay, I'm going through it, and I've got Honda Civic, I've got my wife with me, and I've got a couple of kids, and I have a tent. What does this campground look like to me from that perspective? And I'd try and take notes in terms of that. Then I'd go back through the campground and I'd say, okay, now I have a 40-foot motorhome. What does this campground look like to me from their perspective? Because they have different needs. And so I try to take notes about that. So why the 100 best? Well, campers have limited vacation time. Typically 1 to 2 weeks a year is all we get. And to try and figure out where the best campgrounds are on your own takes a heck of a lot of research. And most people don't have that much time to really look. And maybe you're from out of state or whatever, and you just want to visit beautiful Colorado and know where to go. So everybody always wanted to know where the best campgrounds were. I kept getting that question from friends when I did my initial research. And sometimes it's hard to find good resources that critically compare campgrounds. I know there's a lot of online resources available today, and some of those are great. Still, it's hard to sift through all of that. So I decided to come up with the idea of the 100 best, but then I thought, well, what about the rest of the campgrounds? They're important too. What if the 100 best are unavailable? Not everybody agrees with what criteria and what the best campgrounds are. Campers need options. They have different needs. There are plenty of other great options available. In this case, you're looking at Cow Creek South and Green Mountain Reservoir near Silverthorne, and it's a beautiful spot. But it's not one of the 100 best, but your criterion, what the 100 best could be different than mine, and there is no right or wrong to this. I tried to be as objective as possible and asked a lot of questions and did my very best. But again, ultimately, you're the one that's going to determine what a 100 best campground is to you. The first edition, as I stated earlier, came out in 2000. So again, the title, 100 Best, and all the rest. I sort of explained how that came to be. I have camped all over the world, typically in tents when I'm camping out of state, although if there's states nearby, I might camp in an RV, whatever. But I've camped in Hawaii, I've camped in Alaska, I've camped in various spots throughout the US, I've camped in Europe, I've camped in the Caribbean islands, I've camped in New Zealand twice just before the pandemic hit. My wife and I celebrated our retirement by going to New Zealand for 2 months. And we spent 2 months in New Zealand. And you're looking at Shelley Beach on the North Island of New Zealand in this particular shot right here. You might ask what kind of equipment I've camped with. Well, have I camped in tents like this one? No, this is pretty huge. I can't even imagine getting that in a vehicle, but this was a shot taken in New Zealand, actually, and there were many tents this size in New Zealand. I couldn't believe how big they were. I don't even know where they came up with these incredible tents. I would even see them bring couches from home and stick these into those tents, and it's just amazing how big these tents were. And I guess that's a fun thing about going elsewhere and seeing how people camp in other areas of the world. But I camped in motorhomes. This is another New Zealand shot. I just thought it was such a cute camper. I had to take a picture of it. Looks like a little tiny house on wheels. No, I don't have, motorhomes are great. I just have never had one. So I've never really camped in a motorhome. Have I lived juicy? This is a picture of a camper that a New Zealand company rents out. Their motto is "Live Juicy." It's sort of cute. They have some other campers over there. They call them mad campers. They are very inventive over there with their campers, and it just sounded really fun. So we had to include a shot of that. And again, this is another New Zealand shot. Have I camped in tents? Oh yes, I've camped in plenty of tents. I have 6 to 8. I have a very large garage, and I don't even know where half of them are at in that garage. And you know, I've backpacked, I've camped in canoes and kayaks, I've camped off of bicycles, I've camped off of motorcycles. I don't know, I've done all kinds of different kinds of camping. And so I always thought that I had to have a tent for each specific purpose. So I have a lot of familiarity with tents and have spent probably a couple of years of my life in tents. So the last time I revised my book, which was the last couple of summers, I decided to try out rooftop tents. Those were new, and again, just being curious, and I had to travel fast and light. The last time I revised the book, it was with a rooftop tent. So I know that perspective as well. Now I've owned 5 different pop-up campers over the years, and they get progressively bigger and more expensive and more elaborate as I went along. My first 3 were pop-up tent trailers, and I had a couple pop-up hard-sided trailers. So a lot of familiar with them. I guess the point being is that I see camping from a lot of different perspectives. So I appreciate however you camp and try to take your needs into account. When we do go international, we typically try to rent a station wagon. This is a Toyota Corolla station wagon in New Zealand with the steering wheel on the right, and we drive on the left side of the road over there, and a 4-man REI tent, because my wife insists that she has to be able to stand up if we're going to go camping in a foreign country. So there we go. We drag the 4-man tent with us on the airplane. This is how we camp most of the time now, per my wife's orders. She feels like she really likes the amenities of a deluxe camper. So this is a 23-foot travel trailer, and it's glamping, but I can still go back and camp in tents and be perfectly happy. Most people, as they graduate up, from tents to pop-ups to campers to motorhomes, they always say they can never go back. I guess I'm weird or something. I can camp any which way, and I enjoy it. It doesn't matter to me if I'm sleeping on the ground or a camper. I just really don't care. Types of public campgrounds in this book. The vast majority of the campgrounds in this book are Forest Service campgrounds. They're by far the most numerous. There's a variety of campgrounds out there with the Forest Service, and the facilities vary widely. Some are extremely primitive, and you'll get a picnic table and a fire ring. If you're lucky, they have water, and that's always a moving target these days. And they'll usually have some sort of toilet facility. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there are a few Forest Service campgrounds there that have RV hookups and showers and all kinds of deluxe amenities, but those are a lot fewer and further between. But I have identified these in the book. On the left, these 2 pictures, the one on the left is White Star Campground. That's near Twin Lakes. And the second one there, I believe, is Lakeview near Gunnison, Colorado, if my memory serves me correctly. Then we have Colorado State Parks. By far and away, they have the most deluxe amenities of any public campgrounds in the state, and they're exceptionally popular because you have the spacious sites in general, you have the amenities, they're great for RVs, they're great for tents. Everybody loves the state parks. They're super, super popular. Reservations are mandatory in all state parks. They no longer allow first come, first serve campers, so you must make your reservations in advance. And the most popular parks, you should make those reservations at least 6 months in advance if you can. And I'm really emphasizing that 6 months in advance is very important. Sometimes when a campground becomes available, the end of that first day that it's 6 months out, all the popular spots are gone. So please make those reservations in advance. In this case, we're looking at a campground that most people are not familiar with. This is Lake Hasty. This is John Martin Reservoir down in the southeastern portion of the state. And there are some campgrounds on top near John Mountain Reservoir that don't look very nice at all. But this is called Lake Hasty. This is down below the dam. And it looks like a campground from the Midwest. And I've never lived in the Midwest, but it's got trees and grass and hookups and a little beautiful little lake there. And it's just a really pretty little spot. So that's what you're looking at there, Lake Hasty at John Martin Reservoir State Park. Then we have national park campgrounds. We only have a few of those in the state, but ones that we do are extremely popular. Again, you can reserve up to 6 months in advance. The facilities vary widely. You're looking at the Great Sand Dunes National Park there. And on the left, you can see what a lot of campers get to view. There's not a lot of shade or anything, but how often do you get to camp near 700-foot high sand dunes? On the right, you're seeing an intermittent creek. I think this is Medano Creek that sometimes in spring, early summer will run. Oftentimes it's dry and people are treating it like it's a beach here. So beautiful spot. Again, the tallest sand dunes in North America. And again, make your reservations far in advance. And sometimes mostly very primitive, or rather primitive, I should say, facilities, but some of them have pretty deluxe facilities. Then we have city and county campgrounds. The reservations may be mandatory there. I can especially point to Larimer County, up Fort Collins, Loveland area. They control about 6-8 campgrounds up there, and they require reservations to be made in advance. It's either reservation or recreation.gov or the other one that can also take the reservations. On the left, you're looking at Flatiron Reservoir outside of Loveland. On the right, you're looking at Horsetooth Reservoir. But there's some great camping there as well. And they can be a lot of fun and close to the city. Then we have state wildlife camping areas. These are usually free if you have a wildlife pass or a hunting and fishing license. And there are actually quite a few state wildlife camping areas. A lot of the state wildlife properties do not allow camping, some do, so you need to pick up a copy of their book to really know if it's available. And I don't have all, there's a lot of them that I don't have in this book, but there's a lot of them out there. You're looking at Deweese Reservoir in these pictures here. It's absolutely a gorgeous spot. You can look at the views there. People camp wherever they'd like around the lake. They're lucky if they have a fire ring or a picnic table. Most cases they do not. I think there's one vault toilet on the whole property, so you have to bring your own trash in, or take your own trash out, I should say. So anyways, they're great spots, and again, they're usually free, so the price is right. Then we have BLM campgrounds. Usually there's no reservations at most of these campgrounds. They have low fees because they have limited facilities, but they're in some gorgeous obscure spots throughout the state. You're looking at, I think, this Gateview Campground near Lake City, Colorado, right here. You get a picnic table, a fire ring. Hopefully you'll get some water, and you usually get a vault toilet. But again, the water situation can really vary. One year you could go to a campground, and this also holds true for Forest Service campgrounds, and they could have water. The next summer they don't have water. It's sort of crazy. I would always advise you to call in advance if you can and determine if they have water, and always bring some in reserve just in case they don't. So then we have what's called dispersed and designated dispersed camping. Dispersed camping, it says it's essentially camping on any public land, Forest Service land, and you usually have to stay at least 100 feet away is what they state from water sources, but any public land is open for the most part to camping. Now, this practice got a little out of hand in the minds of, I should say, in the minds of a lot of Forest Service personnel. other public personnel. So a lot of them have now become designated dispersed camping. That means that it's free camping, but they have posts and numbers on some of the sites, and where you might have used to been able to camp any place, now you can only camp in those areas where they have signs. I don't have a lot of these in the book. There's only so much room, trying to include more in this edition, and hopefully there'll be more in the next edition. You're looking at Alta Lakes in both of these pictures up near Telluride. Absolutely gorgeous campground. It is, the scenery is spectacular. It's sort of a rough, high clearance road to get there. So I wouldn't recommend dragging your RV up there, but for tents and maybe pickup campers or something, it's a beautiful spot. Now you're going to ask, how in the world did Gil choose the 100 best campgrounds? Well, again, I asked a lot of Forest Service officials. I asked campground hosts. I asked campers. I asked everybody I could their opinions, and I combined them with my opinions because I didn't want this just to be my idea. I hopefully wanted to be as comprehensive as I could. So scenery. Most people like to be near the water, whether it's near a lake or a river or a stream or something. That seems to be a common theme in most of those campgrounds. To no one's surprise, are the most popular campgrounds in an area. And you're looking at Turquoise Lake in this picture right here. Absolutely astounding scenery. And there are many examples of great scenery in the state of Colorado. We rated them from 1 to 5 stars, trying to come up with an average in many cases. And, you know, of course, the scenic value can be different from different sites within the campground, depending on where you're at. We're also rating how well the campground works for RVs. Again, I've got my 40-foot motorhome, or I've got my fifth wheel or a travel trailer. Can I easily get my rig in there? How long are the spaces? Are they pull through? Are they back in? Pull throughs are what a lot of RVers like. And so I look at that, and do they have hookups? You're looking at Lakeview Campground, which is a great place for RVs, also works well for tent. And this sits above Taylor Reservoir near Almont Reservoir in Colorado. So beautiful spot there. And you're looking at the Collegiate Peaks in the background of this photo. Tents. How well does this work for my tent? You know, just about almost all campgrounds will take tents. Some are better than others in terms of where you can put your tents and everything. A lot of them have designated tent pads, and you must put your campground on that designated tent pad. They're great in the sense that they're flat, they're level, there's no rocks there. They work really well, but sometimes they're in the sun. If there are no designated tent pads, then you can pitch your tent any place. As you can see, this camper is done beside Turquoise Lake in near Leadville. And so you can come up with some beautiful spots if you've got a tent. How is the shade? Again, rating them from 1 to 5 stars. This is a very difficult item to go ahead and rate because, you know, one site can have a lot of shade, the other can have none. And it can also depend on the time of the day, the location of the trees. I always think it's a great idea to bring a shade shelter along with me, especially if I'm unfamiliar with where I'm going or the site that I'm at. So if I need shade, I can make my own shade. You're looking at East Portal Campground at the bottom of the Black Canyon in this particular instance here. And again, tried to come up with an average rating for shade. It's not a perfect system, but we did the best we could. Privacy. It's nice not to be 10 feet away from your next door neighbor. You're looking at Teal Lake, north of Augusta Springs here. And this is a beautiful area. This is one of the top 100 campgrounds. And there's only 6 or 8 spaces in this campground, but you're looking at a large RV in the lower portion of the picture. And there's a heck of a lot of space between them and the next camper. And when you're at this campground and looking off the mountains in the Lemanooch Wilderness area, it absolutely looks like you're in a sort of a John Wayne or kind of movie. The scenery is absolutely spectacular here. In terms of great campgrounds, I was asked to come up with my 5 favorite campgrounds. I cannot come up with my 5 favorite campgrounds because it varies from day to day, season to season. It's like, what am I taking with me for toys? How much time do I have? What season is it? And I really like to mix things up. I don't always like to go to the same campground all the time. So, but these are 5 great suggestions that you might try. Some of these you may be familiar with and some not. So let's get to it. Molly Brown is a beautiful campground. It's on the shore of Turquoise Lake, up 4 miles west of Leadville. So it's well within reach of most people from the Denver area. This is an area that for some reason or another has not been affected by beetle kill or by fires or by wind blowdowns of trees or whatever. So it looks just like it did in 1998 when I was there, and it's absolutely spectacular. You've got beautiful mature trees, you've got great mountain backdrops, you have it all at Turquoise Lake. So Molly Brown is one of 3 top 100 campgrounds that are on that lake. You need to reserve far, far in advance for this campground, especially if you want a lakeside site, 6 months in advance. And again, don't wait till 5 months because they'll be gone. You wait for 5 months and 29 days, those sites will be gone. Turquoise Lake, I think, is about 4 miles long and it's 7,780 acres. It's a beautiful lake. Boating and fishing are popular there, but it is very cold water. You're at 10,000 feet. So, nobody swims in that lake. There's a trail on the north side of this lake called Turquoise Lake Trail. It's 6.4 miles. It goes along the shoreline and goes to the campgrounds. Beautiful trail, suitable for hiking and bicycling, more mountain biking than hiking or than road biking, but it's a dirt trail and it's pretty easy to do and it's very, very pretty. And I suggest you do it if you're there. The tallest mountain in Colorado is nearby, Mount Elbert at 14,433 feet. It's a great place to go. You've also got 4-wheeling there with Hagerman and Mosquito Pass nearby and other opportunities. So there's a lot to do in Leadville. And again, you've got, I think, about 5 or 6 campgrounds total on this lake. And again, 3 are top 100 campgrounds. So the others are Baby Doe, which is basically a clone of Molly Brown. They're very, very similar. And then there's a tent-only campground called Belle of Colorado. It's absolutely beautiful, limited to tents only at Turquoise Lake. Moving on, there are great sites for RVs there at Molly Brown. They're dirt, mostly back ends. Size varies, but they work pretty well and they've got good privacy in most cases. Again, good spaces for tents. At Molly Brown, decent shade and privacy at most of the campsites there. And wonderful recreational opportunities on the far side of the lake. You're looking here at the Turquoise Lake Recreation Trail goes along that shoreline and around the corner to the campgrounds in the foreground. And you're looking off at the mountains in the distance across the lake. So you've got beautiful views as you're walking around on this gorgeous trail. Next is a campground called Bridge. This is one that I suspect very few of you are familiar with. This is down in the southwestern portion of the state. This is 21 miles northwest of Pagosa Springs, okay? It is a first come, first served campground, so no reservations. Anytime it's a first come, first serve only campground, I suggest you go on a Sunday or a Monday or earlier in the week to secure a spot. You come later in the week, Thursday or Friday, you might have a more difficult time. It is one of the longest campgrounds I've ever seen for as few campsites. There's 19 sites there, and I swear the thing stretches out almost a mile between all the different sites. All 19 sites are adjacent to Williams Creek, so they're all on the creek side. They're all spacious. It's one of 3 top 100 campgrounds in the area. Further down the road is a couple of other campgrounds that are top 100 and are great as well. Tremendous separation and privacy there. Peace and solitude close to the Weminuche Wilderness for the hikers. Williams Creek Reservoir is nearby for, I think, electric motors only and fishing. It's a great place for RVs and tents. Some of the best scenery in Colorado. Aspens are really abundant in this area. I imagine it to be great fall scenery. I've not been there in the fall. This is another picture. Again, this looks like some kind of a cowboy movie to me as I look off in the distance, the Wemmanooch Wilderness area from Bridge Campground. Extra spacious sites there, as you can see from this spot. And again, the creek is right next to this campground. Moving on, we have Lost Lake. This is 8 miles west of Crested Butte via the Kebler Pass Road. And the Kebler Pass Road is suitable for anything that'll go down the road. You can take RVs, motorhomes, anything. It's just a gravel road. This is a first come, first serve campground. So again, get there early in the week, Sunday or Monday preferably, to try and secure a site. There's a number of equestrian sites there too. So if you're into horseback riding, it's a great spot for that. Wildflowers here are extremely abundant in the middle of the summer. There's an easy 3 Lakes trail that goes past 3 lakes and includes a waterfall, and I think it's only a 2 or 3 mile loop in all total. So very easy, very level, beautiful hike to take anybody, including the kids and whomever, on this trail. You can enjoy motorless boating at this reservoir. Kebler Pass is known throughout the state as having some of the most fantastic fall colors. I would call ahead to see if it's going to be open in terms of the campground into September and October, but absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous place. Your mouth just drops when you look at this lake. To give you a perspective of how tall that mountain is in the background, in the lake, in the back of that lake, you can see a speck of something there. That's actually a canoeist. Beautiful mountains there. It's a place that you can just come and sit and relax and maybe fish or just contemplate nothing. And it's far away from civilization. Highly recommend this spot to you. Then we have Mueller State Park. Mueller State Park is, depending on who you say and who you talk to, I should say, it's one of the 3 most popular campgrounds in the state of Colorado. It's 4 miles south of Divide, 33 miles from Colorado Springs. As I stated, it's exceptionally popular. It's open year-round. Reservations are mandatory year-round. And again, you need to make your reservation far in advance, up to 6 months, because these spots go quickly. Excellent spaces for RVs with many pull-throughs, electric hookups, and a dump station. Wonderful sites for tents, including 22 lovely walk-in sites. There's some equestrian sites for the horse lovers. There's showers, flush toilets, laundry, campground store. It's sort of a hiker's paradise with 55 miles of mostly easy hiking trails. Many of those are open to mountain bikes. In fact, my wife and I camped here this summer, and I took my mountain bike and explored a lot of those trails. And they were just mainly old ranch roads, and they didn't even have rocks or anything that I had to look out that would possibly take me off my bicycle. I'm not the best mountain biker, but just a gorgeous place. And can't recommend this place enough. This is an example of one of the walk-in tent sites at Mueller State Park. See the mountains in the distance, but just a lovely place to be. This is an example of a pull-through site. It doesn't look at on the outset that it's a great site, but when you pull through, as you look to the right of that camper, there's nothing but forest. And they have a lot of these, they have one long road that goes through there, and on one side, they put the campers, and so anyways, you get out of your camper to the right there, and it's just nothing but forest. So they feel extremely private. They're easy to go through. It's a paved road through the campground, hookups, everything an RVer could need. Just a fantastic place to camp. This is an example of one of the trails that I rode my mountain bike through there this summer. A lot of aspens in the area, so again, I suspect it would be great in the fall as well. Can't wait to go back there. Lastly, we have Steamboat State Park. Steamboat Lake State Park is, again, one of the most popular state parks in Colorado. I think it's, depending on the order, it's Mueller, Steamboat Lake State Park, and Ridgway State Park are the 3 most popular campgrounds in the state of Colorado. And again, there are 42 state park campgrounds in the state. Anyways, it's 26 miles north of Steamboat Springs. Reservations are mandatory. It's open year round. Make your reservation 6 months in advance. It's highly recommended. There's a 1,000-acre lake there for boating and fishing. And I think it's open to every type of boating that you could want. So no restrictions there. There's also a marina that rents boats out. There's a mix of pull-throughs and back-ends for the RVs. 90 of the sites have electric. There's a dump station there. Fantastic walk-in tent sites on Bridge Island. So the tenters have their own special island just for tents, which is really wonderful. Superb lake views. Now this campground used to have a lot more trees. They had a blowdown and beetle kill and this, that, and the other thing, and they had to cut down a lot of their trees. But the flip side of that is that when they cut down the trees, it opened up the views for a lot of the people camping. So you've got great lake views now. There's many nearby hiking trails that lead to the Mountain Circle Wilderness area. There's off-highway vehicle and four-wheeler opportunities nearby. You might have your little small fishing boat, as you see in this picture, and beautiful spot to go out and fish. I have a friend that swears it's the best fishing in the state of Colorado, although I sometimes wonder about his sanity because often I've been there camping with him and he comes back with no fish and spend all day fishing there, but he claims it's the best fishing in the state. I don't know. There's spacious RV pull-throughs and back ends. And again, as you can see, a lot of the trees are gone now. But again, a lot of great views of the reservoir, and they are spectacular views there. Now, some of the sites have these little shade shelters as you see there, some do not. So, but again, bring your own shade shelter with you if you would like. This is a shot of Bridge Island, where again, it's for tenters only. And you can see sort of it's a tenter's paradise. And most of these sites are scattered around the edge of this little island with beautiful views of the lake. And some of these sites are lucky enough to even have a little shade shelter. You're looking at Hans Peak in the background, a very popular place to hike and climb to the top of that. So that's nearby. There's a shot of the marina here, some of the boats there. If you have any questions on any of this, you can ask them shortly. Also, this is my email address, gilfolsom@hotmail.com. I always encourage people to write to me, ask questions, offer comments, suggestions. I'm far from perfect, and I can always use more information to hopefully make the next edition of this book better. So thank you so much for joining us. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
All right, thank you, Gil. That was really interesting, and I can't wait to go camping next summer. I want to pick out my best sites and get reservations 6 months in advance. Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone that the Gil's book is 25% off for the rest of the night, and I'm going to put that link in the chat again using the code camping25. And let's take some questions for Gil. We do have Aubrey wrote that she has a first edition of your book from the year 2000. So what has been changed and updated from that edition, Gil?
That's a great question, and it's interesting. When I went out to revisit all these campgrounds a couple of years ago and last summer as well, I talked to all the public officials, made some calls, and went out and visited, of course. And some of the campgrounds haven't changed at all. Some of them are as they were from the 60s, but many of the campgrounds have changed. They've been continuously upgrading facilities. Some campgrounds were affected by fires and beetle kill and everything. And so they no longer look like they used to. So they've lost their 100 best status. So there's a number of others that I overlooked that almost made the top 100 last time, that now are top 100. There are new campgrounds out there, but there actually have been quite a few changes from that first edition. Again, that research was done in 1998, and we're 2022 now. So that's 24 years ago. So, you know, I think it's worthwhile to update your book, but I sure thank you for getting the first edition. I hope it's helped you quite a bit in that time.
So Nicole asks, what's your advice for staying warm? while you're camping?
First of all, look at the elevation. The higher the elevation, the more warm clothing. If it says it's 9,500 to 10,000 feet, I don't care if it's the middle of summer. And make sure you have a good sleeping bag. And, you know, you can see the ratings on those sleeping bags. And I'd say a 15-degree bag wouldn't be overkill for a lot of the mountain campgrounds in the summertime.
Mm-hmm. Someone wrote in good R value pads under you. So sleeping pads with a high R value keep you warmer and more insulated from the ground.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion as well.
Michael wrote, are there any recommendations in the book for camp spots with off-road motor vehicle access for dirt bikes, ATVs, trail access for those types of motorized vehicles?
Another good question. Yes, there are recommendations in the book for those, especially with the top 100 campgrounds. At the end of each description, I should state that each top 100 campground gets a full page of a write-up and a color photo. And at the end of that, there's recreational opportunities. So as I also do OHV and I've had dirt bikes and four-wheel drives and everything. So I always pay attention to that. And I state that, but there are areas of the state where it's particularly well suited. Over in the Taylor Park area, there's a lot of OHV. Over near Silverton and Telluride and Lake City and that whole area, there's a lot of great opportunities over there. So, but I try to note that wherever it's possible.
So what other kinds of recreational opportunities do you include in those top 100 campgrounds?
Well, the two most popular activities for any campers are typically hiking and fishing. So we always pay attention to the hiking and fishing opportunities. And then I always ask, what's unique, what's special, what can we do here for fun? So of course, if there's any kind of water, I look at, you know, what can we do with the water in terms of recreation? If it's a river, is it navigable? Can we take a canoe or a kayak, or can we take a raft down it? I look at other things too. I remember one campground where the campground host told me it's great for collecting turquoise. So, okay, that's a cool thing to do, you know, or some of them are near a cave, you know. So I try to ask what can we do there? And again, we have icons in the book that sort of identify it in the description. I try to be comprehensive as I can about the different types of recreational opportunities. Because again, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So I have interest in most of those activities.
That's great. So we've got a question from Kurt. What campground is one that everyone should visit but doesn't?
That's a tough question. I don't know. What campground should everybody visit but nobody does? Well, I would say it's probably something far away from everything else. And it's funny, if you're from the Denver area, a lot of people don't know about the campgrounds down south. And there's a lot of people from Texas and Oklahoma and everything and know those campgrounds very well. Oh, actually, I know one. East Portal would be a perfect example, actually. So that is East Portal. Most people go visit the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park. They drive in and there's a campground up on top of the mesa there. And it's crowded and cramped and everything else. And they don't realize is it's a road that goes to the bottom of the Black Canyon. And so you take this steep road, you can't take an RV down there, but it's great for tents or a truck camper. You can go the steep, windy road down there, it's paved road, and you get down there and there's this wonderful campground right next to the river in the bottom of the Black Canyon that is fantastic for tenting and great shade and everything else. And it's hardly ever filled too. So you can almost always get a spot there. So that's an example of a great campground that nobody visits that probably they should.
Priscilla asked, is there information in the book for campground suitability for adult interests and for various ages of children? Are there suggestions for things to do with kids?
Some, I mean, in general, the things that we do with our children are somewhat same things that we can do as adults. We can all hike. It's just that you may have to take an easier hike if you've got small children. You know, if you're near the water, you need to take special precautions, obviously, that, you know, they're safe from the water, and you may not want a water site in that case, but and if there's playgrounds in the campground, there's usually state parks that have those. I'll usually note that as well. So I try to pay attention to that, but often they're the same type of activities. You just have to be a little more careful and go on easier trails and everything if you've got the children with you.
Nicole asks, if I want to camp at the Great Sand Dunes, do you have any tips on how to prepare for the different surface, like dirt versus sand?
It can be quite windy there, and the wind can kick up the sand, so know that in advance. It also can be quite hot there. So just some good sand pegs if you've got a tent. You know, there's different types of pegs to hold your tent securely in the ground. So just make sure you have something that works well in sand, and you can go to REI for suggestions on that. But sand is usually pretty easy to camp with. You just need some kind of a peg that'll stick to the sand.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, we have another question from Priscilla. For children, is there information about which campgrounds have ranger programs?
There is, and typically those are mostly state parks. So there are 42 state parks. Not all of those parks have camping, but I'm trying to note it in the book where I'm sure of it. You can also call the state parks in advance and ask if they have either ranger-led or volunteer-led programs. We stayed at Mueller State Park this summer, and we actually participated in most of the interpretive programs we could, because I was curious to how they would work, and they were a lot of fun, and some were geared for small children. So always contact state parks if you're going to visit them. Those programs change from time to time and days of the week and whatnot. So if you want to make sure, contact the state park before you go.
The national parks will typically have those too.
Yes, the national parks do as well.
Mhm. All right. Are there any last questions for Gil? Well, thank you so much for attending, everyone. And thank you, Gil, for writing this incredible resource for all of us. And thank you for the talk tonight.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I hope that if you buy the book, you enjoy it. And the biggest compliment, the biggest reward I get from this book is having people contact me and say that it's helped them. That makes me feel great. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the trail.